All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 12th session of Office Hours. It's crazy to me that we've made it a year of these, but here we are. If this is your first time here, Office Hours is a monthly live stream from the DevRel team at ngrok, where we talk about the latest ships. We show off new things that we've built that we want to show you, and answer your questions live as they're happening, and try to get you set up to use ngrok maybe in ways that you didn't even know you could use it for. So as we're kind of getting rolling here, I ask people to let me know where they're watching from, or if you do already use ngrok on a device like a Raspberry Pi or just your laptop, a Kubernetes cluster that you're running in your closet. Always love to hear those stories. So let me know in the chat here. And otherwise, we'll kind of slowly tuck into this one. On the agenda for today is mostly a demo that I wanted to run through of a really cool way of using ngrok as a gateway between um, AI front end tools like Lovable, Bolt, V0. There's a whole bunch of them out there right now. And how can you build a front end like on your browser with an AI tool, but then have control over the API and the database that it's hitting when that's running on your local laptop or some other like a VM in the cloud somewhere? Like, how do you bind those two together in a way that is safe and secure, but also like makes you as productive as possible? So we're going to run through that, which I'm pretty excited about. We're going to hope that the demo gods are good to me and that everything runs smoothly. But in the meantime, we also have a bunch of community stuff happening right now, which is super exciting. Aishika, who might jump in here at some point, and hello. I'm so grateful that everyone's in the chat, letting me know where they're from. Boston, California, Portland, Sweden. Amazing to have like a global audience here. Yeah, we have a ton of stuff going on in the community, and as I was starting to say, Aishika, our community manager, is running a bunch of local meetups from our San Francisco office. We're calling these the sort of local host series of events. And there's one coming up. The next one is on September 9th. So if you happen to be in the Bay Area and would like to hang out with ngrokers, that's a really fantastic way to do it. I know a lot of you aren't in the Bay Area, but we always want to, get the word out about these and try to get people to hang out with us in our office and talk about, gateways and generative AI and all the different like cool things that are happening in the Bay Area and how we can kind of like try to knit them together with ngrok. So I dropped the link in the chat here. I'll also show it here to our Luma calendar where we are constantly updating the events there for office hours, local events. And when we're going to be in KubeCon North America in Atlanta, we will put a bunch of stuff there as well. So you can follow along, join us, and hope to see some of you there in early November to talk about Kubernetes and all that good stuff. Awesome. So I think that sometimes, thank you, Ryan. Sometimes YouTube requires refreshes and other things. And if you ever have a moment where like the audio stops working, something like that, usually a refresh just takes care of things. Amazing. So I think what we will start to do is just jump straight into this demo of using Lovable as a AI front end builder and trying to connect that to a API and a database that's running on localhost. And I think it's pretty cool because if you want to take this project and fork the repository that I have on GitHub, you can kind of like build your own cheat sheets of things that you want to be able to access quickly, whether those are ngrok related or beyond. And it's just kind of like, at least for me, it's been a really fun way to kind of like experiment with these tools, but also build something that is hopefully useful to you. So let me drop the link to the GitHub repository here in the chat. These things, our experience in the past has been it's kind of difficult for folks to follow along with all of the steps, like as I am also showing them like the screen and everything. you're more than welcome to try, but I'm going to kind of like breeze through the demo and how to put it all together. I'll stop and explain things along the way, but generally we'll kind of just cruise through, and the repo is there for you to build on your own after the fact, maybe this weekend if you've got some spare time. And I'll be here to answer questions if there's something that you're not sure of along the way, about kind of like what I'm building, and hopefully get you set up the right way when you do have that time to build it yourself. So I'm going to take a minute to juggle some windows around and share my screen here. All right. We are going to share this screen. Lovely. All right, so I've got Lovable up on my browser. I've got some terminal windows open, and I also have, actually, I will also pull up the cheat sheet myself, or the repo, so that we can check out what this is all about. So if you haven't seen this repository yet, maybe you didn't get like the emails that we sent out, anything like that. Basically, what we have here is an API service that it's written in Express and Node.js, and you can use it to store and manage code snippets in a database file that is just kind of like stored within the repo. And what we're going to do is we're going to host this locally, and then we're going to be able to connect that to whatever we're building in Lovable. And hopefully the two get knitted together in a really nice way. And again, the demo gods are kind to me as I'm trying to build all this out. So I already have all the prerequisites. I have an ngrok account. I have Node.js. I have a Lovable account. I'm going to go ahead, and I have the repository already cloned on my local machine. So I'm going to go ahead and run the API service itself. I'll make this nice and big so that hopefully everyone can see. We'll npm start, and we have this cheat sheet API server running on port 3000. If I just send a very basic curl request to that, let's do snippets, which is an actual path. You can see a whole bunch of JSON spat back out in response, which means that we are, like, the server is up and running. It's pulling things from our database, and everything is working as we hope. Awesome. So we have it up and running. Now, like, this is only running on localhost here, so it's not accessible to the public internet. But I could start running ngrok right now, but I'm going to jump over and build this front end with Lovable, kind of like independent of the service itself right now. I wrote out this prompt that worked fairly well for me. Your experience may be different, knowing that LLMs are like non-deterministic, and what I get back from Lovable with this prompt will be different from what you get. But I've tried to just say, like, I'm developing an API that lets me, CRUD code snippets and display them in a grid. I have a couple of requirements for this front-end application, in that I want to have syntax highlighting, and I want to have this variable API base URL, so that I can change that depending on like where the API service is running, and that is going to be really important once we want to connect the two through ngrok. I also asked to not include mock data, and then I've included kind of the specification of the API service itself, like what are the paths that you have, what kind of like is the structure of the data that this database is expecting, and this usually is enough to get Lovable to kind of like cobble it all together and pull something together that ends up being workable. So I am going to just go ahead and copy all of this in and paste it into Lovable, and we'll kind of like let it work its magic for a moment, trying to understand what I'm building and how to best respond to that. If there's any questions in the chat, if any questions at all about like where things are, what I've done so far, or where things are headed. Happy to answer them while we're kind of waiting for the AI gods to work their magic. Super appreciate the love in the chat from about ngrok. Anybody else using ngrok for like a interesting? I think I saw one person saying they run it just like local dev, so probably off of a laptop. Anyone else using it like in an interesting place, a VM somewhere, a Raspberry Pi, anything like that? Would love to hear that. And this is taking quite a bit longer than I expected. So what we're going to do as we wait for this is normally I would update the Lovable app to use the ngrok domain that I will start in a moment before doing this. But let's just skip ahead and start up an ngrok agent, and that is going to connect the API service running on localhost with like the public internet. And then we'll kind of like make sure that the Lovable app can speak to that. So I'll head back over to my terminal. I'll run ngrok http, and we have port 3000 that matches where this API service is running on localhost. And I have a domain already reserved for this, officehours12.ngrok.app. There's instructions in the GitHub repo. If you have just a free account, you will get an ephemeral random URL from ngrok. If you have a paid account, you can reserve a domain and use that for like the stability of not having to change that domain every time you start up the ngrok agents. But we do have that up and running, and we can also test out that that is working by just sending. Keep making this bigger. Every time I look over at my like the stream here, it always looks so tiny. I apologize for that, but we can do a very basic curl request to this same thing, and I think snippets. There we go. So you can see that now I am making a request to this public URL. ngrok is taking that, routing it through our network to the agent that I have running on my machine. And then finally, that goes into the API service that I have running on port 3000. And you can see here came the request came in as expected. Everything's working like the way we hope it is. And if any of you want to try this out, you can also hit this endpoint. I'm put my machine up to the public internet, and you guys can see what you can do there. But this is kind of like the core use case of ngrok, and I'm sure why a lot of you started using it to begin with. Is like I'm building something and I want to share it with other people, and like this is the best way to do it. This works out really well. Brian, awesome to hear that you've been using ngrok for Twilio stuff. There's a lot of, I think there's a name for Twilio employees, or like there's a lot of Twilio fans here at ngrok. So I'm not sure if that means that you work for Twilio or like using Twilio webhooks, but either way, always happy to hear that. So I did hear that Lovable responded, and let's see here. We don't have anything, which is maybe if I refresh here. This is what I meant when I said that that LLMs are non-deterministic, and you never know what you're going to get in response to their queries, like to your prompts. I tested this out last week, and everything worked perfectly. But of course, as soon as I try to do it live, it all breaks. Okay, it's doing some stuff. We're letting it do its magic. Has anyone else out there tried using ngrok in this way, or tried Lovable in this way? Really curious about how folks are like like we have been trying to do a lot of stuff around ngrok around like different shapes of gateways, like different use cases for ngrok as a gateway. And I feel like there's always like we have our understanding of how people are using it, but there's always so much more going on out in the world than we are aware of. So if you've got any interesting ways that you're using ngrok alongside like AI tools or other front end development things or whatever, would love to hear them. But as I've been rambling, it looks like we have like Lovable figured out what it broke, and this actually is surprises me that it is fetching it from. It seems to be fetching the actual data, even though it shouldn't have. So let's try to understand that a little bit. So it's local storage. Interesting. This is another thing with building with AIs is like you have to try to parse what it did, based on your prompts, and that can be a challenge for sure. So from my perspective, like I'm actually quite surprised that it has this stuff already, considering that I haven't connected it uh, to my ngrok domain and thus to my local API service. But what I'm going to do is just kind of like bulldoze everything and see if I can give it this prompt where I'm asking it to update the API base URL variable, and replace the API call so that it's getting all of its data from this public endpoint and not from like mock data, or it seems to be pulling from maybe like local storage. So I'm going to say update API base URL to HTTPS. It's oh12.ngrok.app. That is mine. And let's also remove any local storage capabilities. I don't really want that. So we'll give it another moment. In the meantime, I saw some interesting things in the chat that I will take a look at. So we've got one person here using automation tools to extract daily transactions at a restaurant chain. ngrok opens the toolkit via a custom domain. That's very cool. So it's kind of like a device gateway type of thing where you are trying to access a remote device. Like this is very common for folks on like restaurants, veterinary clinics, health clinics, things like that, where you need to access or kind of like interact with the machine that is point of sale, and you can't send out a technician to deal with it, anything like that. So very cool to hear that you're using that to like extract data, use AI to kind of like figure out or use automation to figure out what's going on there. We've got Drupal in Docker in laptops and a Docker image of ngrok to share what they're doing with each other. Awesome. We will hopefully I'll have a few minutes toward the end to talk about our Docker desktop extension that just went out last week. And maybe we'll make that process even easier for you. So fingers crossed. And AI dashboards for finance teams. Love that. So many cool use cases. Really appreciate everyone sending those along. We have Lovable has done a bunch of stuff. So let's see what we have going on here. We are still loading all of these code snippets, which is great. Maybe I'll come over here and see like we've got a lot of traffic coming in to our /snippets path, which says to me that like this seems to be working. Let's try it out. Let's do we'll do a very basic like traffic policy thing here. Let's see, on HTTP request. Oh, we'll say actions type deny. If you've used traffic policy before, maybe you've come across deny. I like it. It's very nice to just make traffic go away when you don't want to deal with it anymore. So this seems to be working. We've got again like stuff coming into the snippets path in our local host. So like what we have done here now is put ngrok in the middle of this lovable front end AI thing that's kind of like fastly iterative and uncontrollable in a way, but then it's connecting to what we have running on localhost, which means that I can now continue to develop the API. Maybe I want to add some features to it, extend it a little bit. Then I could go over into Lovable, add that in on the front end. There's a ton of different things you could potentially do. Speaking of which, maybe what I will do is um, there is a way that you can like delete them en masse and start over. So we could build something there. We could ask Lovable to be like add a delete all function. So lots of cool things you could do. We've got Mark here asking, you share a URL to the Lovable front end so we can look exactly what it generated for you? That's a great question. Let's see. Yeah, I'll hit publish on here and we'll see what happens. I've never done this before, but uh, that's part of the fun of demoing these things live. So hopefully what we'll get here is a URL, a public URL from Lovable that all of you can hit and like just absolutely thrash the database that I have here. Let's see if that works. I will try it out myself. Seems like it works totally fine. That's awesome. So anyone's welcome to go here. You can add snippets, you can delete them, whatever. Um, uh, that's a pretty cool way to like, yeah, even more quickly like share something that you built or like that way you can kind of like share the Lovable version of what you've built, and it's all kind of like ngrok is still working between Lovable and your local host. Very interesting way to kind of put it all together. Um, Hey Sam, how's it going? Oh, we got Sam Rose here. Some of you might have heard of Sam before. Sam makes some very cool things on the internet. And Sam, I think you've spilled the beans that you're going to be joining us in a couple weeks to do a whole bunch of cool content, elevate everything that we're doing. Appreciate you being here with me and everyone else. So we've built this Lovable app, and I've shared it very freely with everyone. Not only can you go look at the Lovable URL that I shared in the chat and poke around, add snippets, whatever. Like like, but you can also hit the endpoint itself, this oh12.ngrok.app, and like I guess that piece in particular is kind of scary to me. Like having your API available on the public internet is usually not something that you're particularly interested in doing. So I want to add a layer of protection there so that only Lovable can make API requests to my upstream service. So what I'm going to do there is, I believe I already have, let's go in here. I believe I already have this. Yes. So I have a traffic policy file here that says if the request contains a header that's named X ngrok token and the I have a negative here. So it's like if the string of that token or of that header is not, this is totally secret, I want to deny the request. So it's kind of like adding this secret, quote unquote, to the connection between Lovable and ngrok, so that like this is not something that people should be able to like figure out on their own or brute force or anything like that. So I'm going to run ngrok again. I'll just copy and paste this from here. And I guess we do have to change the domain before I do that. Okay. So what should happen is that a lot of these requests that are coming in should start to not work. I'm curious if that is the case. Yeah, ran out of free Lovable credits as it was trying to fix itself. That is like AI in a nutshell, isn't it? I ran into similar issues and had to pay for a month of Lovable tokens to be able to even do this demo, much less go beyond and build other cool stuff around here. As you can see, I get like 5 daily credits, and I used 3.4 of them already, just trying to get this thing up and running. So and I don't know why that did that, but yeah, like not particularly fun. So let me see, like, is this actually let's see here. Okay, seems like it's still working, which is strange and annoying. um it must mean that there's something wrong with my policy file. So if and is there a way to share the front end code? That is another great question. I could potentially sync this project to GitHub. If nothing else, maybe what I'll do after the fact is like take everything that we've done here. I'll download that and like put that in a front end folder in the GitHub repo that I was showing before. And then like hopefully everything works the way that we expect it to. But anyways, the demo gods have suddenly become not as kind to me. So what I'm going to do is just anyways ask Lovable to add this header to all of its API requests, this X ngrok token. This is totally secret. And the reason that I'm doing that is so that kind of like the Lovable app knows the secret header token that we're looking for in our ngrok policy. And that's kind of like how we can bring it all together in a way that is somewhat secure. So, I mean, everything still seems like it's up and running as expected. Just one more time checking. Yeah, we've got the policy. So again, like things don't always go to plan. Hoping for a much like clear like cut in the sand that things started breaking and then they start working again as we add this token. But so it goes. Hopefully, you all get the general idea of how it works. Any other questions about how all of this works and like what ngrok's role is in it? Anything that you'd like to see me try next on top of what we've already done here? Happy to keep iterating and just see what strangeness uh, the Lovable AI can come up with. Okay, so our traffic policy is being loaded onto our endpoint, but seems to just be not behaving in the way that I expect. So I should do some troubleshooting on this, but I'm going to spare you all the me sitting here trying to troubleshoot a traffic policy thing here in front of everybody. I see people asking about access. Access to which piece in particular? We've got the GitHub repo, which should be public. Anyone should be able to access this. We'll drop it in the chat again. We have the public Lovable URL that I can also share. If there's anything else, let me know. I will happy to kind of like keep iterating on this and see what else we can do. But for the meantime, maybe I'll take myself off screen share for a moment and just kind of hang out, see what other questions people might have, other things that they're curious about. If you have a question that has nothing to do with what I've been doing here, also happy to answer that. This is a free form space where we, spend some time demoing, but I also want it to be like, I was curious about something entirely different. What can Joel answer for me there? And once again, just trying to juggle a whole bunch of different tabs and windows and screens. One question that we did get, a couple people asked, when when you like register quote unquote for office hours, there's a couple of different ways to get here. maybe a lot of you came just through the live YouTube, like our YouTube channel. We also have a page that you can go to register, and that like gives you an opportunity to get like email reminders that things are happening, and lets you ask a question ahead of time. So I got, and I'll share that, share this URL as well in case you're curious for future editions. We got a few folks asking about, they're like, I use ngrok, I love it. I didn't either. It's like I didn't know that it was production ready, or like how do I know that I can trust ngrok to run in production workloads? Um, and I thought about this for a while yesterday because this was kind of finalizing my prep. I asked a couple other folks about like what do they think about this, like this question of like, can ngrok be trusted to handle production workloads? Um, and my answer is that like we do already have many customers running their entire workloads through ngrok, and that includes like millions of critical connections every day for even just like individual customers, not overall, but like individual people trust us for millions of connections every day. Um, ngrok is also globally distributed. We have points of presence across the world, which means that like we have resiliency and awareness of how important latency is to what you're building. Like no matter what you're building, who it's for, like where you ship it, like, whether it's a data center in San Francisco or Frankfurt or Japan or somewhere else, like we know that latency means a lot to you. And we know that like having like not backups, but resilient points of presence so that if one thing goes down, it intelligently routes around that. Like we've got all of that handled for you. And speaking of customers that use ngrok in production, we are one of these customers. It's been a long time coming. Like this is not really a new phenomenon, a new thing. But I did manage to pin down one of our infrastructure engineers, Alex, who's a phenomenal infrastructure engineer and writer actually. And he wrote out our entire history of how ngrok has approached this idea of dog fooding, which is when you use your own product in production. And for us, that means like fronting all of ngrok with ngrok. Um, and like what this whole story looked like, the troubles that we had in the past, that like the product wasn't quite ready, all of the things that we built in the last 18 months, let's say, to make it ready for prime time, and digging down all into all of the different like pieces of ngrok that they use to make all this happen, like using traffic inspector, piping those logs to datadog for observability, using traffic policy in a bunch of different interesting ways, and then also like replacing the existing nginx pods that they were using. Of course, ngrok runs on Kubernetes, so they had to like rip and replace out a bunch of nginx stuff in favor of ngrok. I'm really like, I'm proud of this story in a way that like I'm proud of Alex being able to write this and be able to tell this story in a really meaningful way. But you can also see here that like this is a screenshot of our the dog food account in Datadog, and I think it pretty well reflects like the volume of what we're dealing with just in terms of the production usage of ngrok.com and its various services. This is I think like a 24-hour window, and you can see that the volume like is steady and high, and it accumulates into a lot of requests that we handle all the time, and we're very happy that like we feel like we're very stable and resilient and low latency, and so that's something that we're very happy to offer to other folks as well. Yeah, thank you, Matt. We also have another blog post. Let's go back to the blog here, that just went out last week, I believe. Yeah, look at that, a week ago, from James, another one of our infra engineers, talking about like how we build our internal developer tooling, some of the philosophies behind that. And James really wanted this to be like, if you are in a position yourself where you're like a infrastructure or platform engineer at a company, like what could you take away from this that you could bring into your own tooling and make things better for your developers? So like something that's really cool is that there's simple commands that you can use with ND that's like ND SVC logs. But what's really running behind the scenes is this long Kubernetes command. And so you kind of have the choice. Like it hides complexity for those who don't want it, but then it also exposes that command for someone who does want to be able to like tweak all of the knobs and maybe like change one of these things somewhere because they know exactly what they're looking for. So very, I'm super proud of our engineers, Alex and James in particular, for working on this content as of late. Really, really amazing stuff. ngrok is really cool, but technology has a tendency to be bought by big tech companies and become unavailable for ordinary users on free tiers. This is, yeah, this is I think, a valid concern for a lot of people. Like, how many times have we all been burned by, like, oh, cool, there's this new open source project that I'm going to start using and like incorporate into everything that I do. And then all of a sudden they're like, half the features are now gated behind the enterprise tier account, and um, you must talk to sales to be able to access them again. And it really just like kind of like, the trust there is already broken. Um, I can't say, like none of us know what's going to happen to ngrok in, years to come. But what I can say is that we have completely transformed like the surface area of the product. If any of you were using ngrok like 2 or 3 years ago, or 8 or 9 years ago, it looks and feels very different now than it did before. Like modules are gone, edges are going away. They've been replaced by endpoints and traffic policy. But despite all of that change in the product, I think that we've done our product team, our engineers, like everyone has all the way up to the top has really focused on like this should not change for the solo developer who just wants to use ngrok to get their local host online in one line, as we've always said. Like that experience is not going away. That experience we hope is only getting better by all of the other stuff that you can add on top of that once you start to learn about traffic policy and how to use endpoints in different ways, or turn on endpoint pooling, or like all these different cool things that we have available. But yeah, super appreciate the question. Hopefully that's a start, and to answering that for you. And if you have other concerns or want to dig into that a little bit more, happy to take that over to email. You can reach me at joel@ngrok.com, and always happy to chat with folks over email. I'll put that in the chat as well. So let me reorient. I've been talking a lot, as it happens when you're doing something like this solo. I kind of want to show, we've had just in the last, actually just Monday and yesterday, we've had some pretty cool new stuff get released within traffic policy. And I'm really excited about this one because it's like something that a lot of people have to set up, but nobody really wants to do it in a way. It's not like particularly exciting, and that is setting up a WAF, which is a web application firewall. For a lot of folks out there, like you might have experienced this. That's like you hear from the higher ups, we need a WAF to be able to ship something to the public internet. We have to have it. It's there's no compromises on that front. But unfortunately, that means for a lot of people, like you have to find another, like a WAF service is separate from everything else that you have. And it needs to be like it goes on the edge of your network before everything else. And that means that there's like different configuration to deal with, like different processes that you have to own now. like it's another, if nothing else, it's another hop in the network between your users and your backend services. So that's not great either, right? Um, and there's so many, like it's such an important piece, but it's not fun or interesting to deal with. So we thought, like, why don't we just make it as simple as possible, so that you can kind of like check the box on WAFs. You can also tweak it if you need to, if you are a WAF power user. But like, let's get people set up and on the way as quickly as possible. So I will try to show off the WAF capabilities here in just a few minutes, and then we're getting close to our, like, the general endpoint of these. So we're kind of like start to wrap things up. But um, I'm going to just hose this policy, because it wasn't working particularly great for me anyways. And I'm going to bring over a different one. And let's see here. Let's close that so you can see what's going on. So this is I've rewritten the traffic policy file here to say that for every HTTP request that comes in, I want to run the OWASP CRS request action. And if it finds an error, if it finds anomalous request coming in, I want to halt that request at ngrok's edge at our network, so that the request doesn't get anywhere near your upstream services, and there's no chance of it, doing some kind of like SQL injection or file inclusion attack, anything else. We're stopping it before it gets anywhere near your services. So I'm gonna pull all this down just to show this last piece. Actually, wait, can I pull it down? Probably not. We'll bring it back up. So I'm going to run the same thing again. I'll go into this other tab. And I sent in a totally normal request, just to the snippets path. And the gateway says, this looks like a legit request. Let's send it upstream, and everything works as you expect. Now what I'm going to do is send in a totally sketchy looking request. Hopefully you all can see this. I'll keep zooming in here. We're sending requests to the same domain name, but we're doing something weird. We're trying to get to the password file of the machine that's running everything. And that's really not supposed to happen. It shouldn't, this shouldn't work in most cases, but it's better to block this kind of request at the gateway as opposed to letting it constantly ping your upstream server and cause issues for you. So this changed, and it says the request was blocked by the WAF, which means that ngrok recognized that it looked sketchy and said, no thanks, we're just going to send an error message right away. So like I said, there's some really interesting ways that you can tweak and configure this. And I will share the blog post for it in the chat so that you all can play around and see how it works. But this is open for any account. You can try it out now. And I hope that everyone is as excited about it as I am, because it's like, for me, it's now the first step in building out any traffic policy. It's like, it's up and running. Okay, let's add a WAF to it. So I just know that I'm not going to be, bombarded with weird attacks, and like maybe something, like there's this thinnest chance that it works and they get something out of my system. Why not just stop it before there's any risk of it at all? Sam, using a personal Telegram bot hooked up to CRUD with a memory database behind it as a personal assistant. Migrated from using Tailscale to ngrok last week, was really easy. There you go. That's your first writing assignment, is how to migrate from Tailscale to ngrok. I love it. Fantastic. We've got Kevin here. Hi, Kevin. Kevin is an amazing video producer. He works with us on all of our YouTube videos, and has like a dev reel is his company. Check him out if you are curious about like conversations about video and marketing and developer tooling. Amazing stuff. Does ngrok monitor blocks like that across endpoints and instances? Yes. I don't want to show Traffic Inspector at the moment because I I don't want to like reveal everyone's uh, IP addresses that have been like hitting my endpoint that I shared with you all before. But what you will see in, let's see if I can, like what you will see is when you go to Traffic Inspector, you will see that there are certain requests and there will be an error message alongside it. And you can click on that error message and it'll tell you like what was the error code that ngrok sent in response, and you'll be able to see that that was the WAF. You'll see exactly like what the request looked like, what the body looked like, what the headers were, where it came from, the IP, the geography, all of that is within Traffic Inspector, which is like why it's such a cool, powerful thing that we wished more people knew about. Trying to spread the word here. Can people run a Minecraft server behind ngrok? Absolutely. We have resources on how to do exactly that. That we have been, let's see here, it's in the docs, and we've updated it somewhat recently so that it's like freshened up and has traffic policy in there so that you can, there it is in the chat, so that you can not just get the server up and running, but use some sort of authentication to say like, I only want, like you probably only want your friends to be able to join your Minecraft server. So the recommendation that we put there is asking them for their IP addresses and then creating a IP restriction on your Minecraft endpoint so that only those folks can access it. And actually, I'll just open this page up so that you all can see it. But yeah, we have lots of people using Minecraft, and we love that. We've been supporting it all along. So the default Minecraft port is 25565. So you can start in a TCP endpoint on that port. You will get back a random TCP address. I believe that, yeah, if you pay for ngrok, you can get a permanent TCP address so that you don't have to constantly like text your friends or Discord them or whatever and be like, oh, the ngrok URL changed. It's now this one. So highly recommend that. And yeah, and here's, actually, maybe we did it elsewhere. I have an example here in my beloved examples gallery of how to use the restrict IPs traffic policy action to say like, I only want, 2 or 3 different IPs to be able to access this, and everyone else gets denied. No more griefers. Everyone's happy, and everything works the way that you hope it would. Okay, in the last like 2 minutes that we're gonna hang out, and I appreciate so many of you hanging out for so long. I do want to show off the Docker desktop extension that we just released last week. A lot of people have been finding it organically, but it's like we're putting in the work to be able to make this thing, be able to like show everyone that it exists and that it's super cool. So I don't think I can make this bigger. How lovely. I have a couple containers running locally. I have N8N and Ollama, which I was using for a video demo on this very extension. But what you can do is go over to, if you go to extensions and manage, and then to the browse section, I believe we're still at the top, which is awesome. You can also search ngrok and you will find us. You click install, and then it will give you this UI right here where you can, I already have endpoints up for this, but what you will do is like every container that you're running locally that has like a host port associated with it, it will show up here. You can like, let's see here. Let me take that one offline, delete it, and create an endpoint. You can specify the URL. I'm just going to leave that blank and get a random URL. And then you can add traffic policy at this moment. I'll skip that for now, just for the sake of the demo. And then you can see that now this Ollama container has a public URL at this CBB 220, et cetera, et cetera. And it's that easy to take local containers, expose them to the public internet, And then if you are, once you learn about traffic policy and how it works and how you want to use it, adding it to your endpoint is as simple as editing the endpoint and adding the traffic policy for auth or anything else. So we're really excited about this. Go check it out. Get it now. I'll drop the link to the blog post, if nothing else, in the chat as well. Okay. Kevin's in with some use cases of the AppSmith local instance shared in just a few seconds with Docker Desktop. Love that. And OAuth is another one that is like very, very common and very, very like beloved among ngrok folks in particular, because it's just so easy to like set up a traffic policy that says like I want to only get logins from this email address and you're up and running. So let's see here, the Docker Desktop extension. There's the blog post. It's got links in there directly to the marketplace. Like if you have Docker Desktop installed, it will, like, you click this install directly link and it'll take you right there. And then the other thing that I will say as I'm talking about OAuth is I put together this really fun, at least for me, blog post from a couple of ngrok engineers talking about how they, and I was trying to prevent that from happening. Where did my browser go? Let's just open up another one. It is right here. So I've got this blog post about 5 different ways that ngrokers are using ngrok in their home labs or their side projects. And they, in their own words, they've explained like what they're trying to do. And then I've got below that the configuration that, like, whether it's an agent configuration, a cloud endpoint, like whatever they're using to get that up and running. Got all of that in this blog post. And it's not really something that you can like copy and paste and just run with it. But I hope that if nothing else, it gives you more ideas of how you could potentially use ngrok in different places that you haven't already. So here's an example of OAuth working in a really cool way, which is like you say that for every HTTP request, you want them to log in with OAuth and you want to use Google as the provider. So what'll happen is that if you try to go to, I think this is this is James. If you try to go to James's home lab, the domain for that, it's going to ask you to log in with Google. And then James set it up so that unless your email that you log in with is one of these, like we've anonymized these for good reason. But if it's not one of those, you get denied. You are not authenticated to be able to access that. But if you log in and your email is one of these, then you have free reign to access any of his home lab services. And that's a really like not very much code for a lot of power that otherwise like you need to use another service for that, or you have to wire this up yourself in all your services, or you have some kind of like middleware in between everything. And it's just like more stuff to manage. And so we think this is pretty cool to just get a home lab available on the public internet so that you can access it anywhere in far less time than most other situations. So thank you, Mark, for watching and for that kind words. The last thing that I have here is I have a link to a form, a feedback form, where I just ask a couple of questions about like, did you like what you saw today? Did you learn anything? If you have any product feedback for us, we are always super appreciative of that. And for those who fill it out, we'll get in touch eventually to give you some swag because we're always grateful for folks who not just watch but participate and help us build a better product along the way. So I think with that, we will start to wrap things up here, and I will finally share a couple of helpful other Is this thing still on? I think it is. I accidentally went back in my browser. That's very embarrassing. A couple of helpful links. We have our Discord, we have our YouTube channel, and we have the emails for myself and Aishika if you want to get in touch. I'm back. I'm so grateful for StreamYard for not just closing that in uh, the instant that I accidentally did that. I have the button on my mouse, that like the thumb button that lets you go back and forward. Um, First time that's happened, so that's always fun. But a couple ways to get in touch aside from this tally form that I have here. If there's any questions, concerns, anything like that, let me know. But if nothing else, thanks for joining. Hope it was interesting. Hope you learned something about how to use ngrok in ways that maybe you didn't think were possible. And we will be back in the middle of September for the 13th, lucky number 13th edition of Office Hours. And until then, thanks for joining, and we'll see you then.